Check it out, y'all.
Elementary, my dear Samantha. Welcome to Wishboning, the All Things Wishbone podcast. I'm your host, John Murphy. With me always is my Watson, Mr. Christian Humes. Christian, how you doing?
I'm doing great. That's the best introduction we've had thus far, so I'm very happy about this already.
I'm sorry, I want to do now catchprodcases from the episode every time.
I love it. I love it, especially because you didn't tell me ahead of time, so that was very special.
All right, so this is episode 8, titled The Slobbery Hound. Joining us is a very special guest. I think you've probably heard of her on the OMFG podcast, Miss Deanna Chen.
Hi guys. It's Chang. Yeah.
Chang.
Chang. But I am trying to get used to it myself, so because it's new for me. So well,
congratulations.
Like, it sounds unusual anyway coming out of my mouth. So I'm like, Chen, no, it is wrong. It's let me just correct it real quick. Yeah, thank you very much.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you for joining us.
I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, we're excited. We always like to start with our guests asking them, are you familiar with Wishbone? If you are, or if you're not, and any type of backstory or anything, or if not at all.
What's your relationship with this
I
series?
have no relationship with wishing or boning. I don't. I haven't wished or boned with wishboning at all. Yeah, this was a brand new experience, and one that quick question.
Yes.
So, are there people out there, and I don't, with all due respect, other than you two, and I don't say that, I just mean with that, all due respect.
Yes.
Are there wishbone fanatics in the world?
I would say, so I think when we picked this show, or when we did that, we wanted to jump on the millennial bandwagon of review shows that were, or anything that was discussing stuff from the 90s, because right now the 80s are big. Everything's discussing in the 80s, and before that was the 70s, and I feel like there's a lot of
ahead of the curve.
We're trying to what can we get from our childhood that we can just dive into?
Okay.
I'd say the response to the series is fanatical, because when you were first discussing, what show are we going to do, when we were coming up with the concept, when you came to me, you said, I've got it. We're going to do Wishbone. I lost it. I was so excited by that idea. And every time we've asked someone to come on that was familiar with the show, you're like, hey, do you remember Wishbone? They were like, I love Wishbone. Their response, it just pulled something out of them that it's almost like they forgot was there.
It is a generational thing though sometimes,
I
because
think, I think I'm too old for wishboning, but I think that Kids Incorporated might get me that. Might have gotten me like that.
Did you did you watch any type of PBS programming growing up, or
give me another title? Let me hear.
Well, I mean, I would say Wishbone probably came after Reading Rainbow in terms of literature-based educational
Rainbow
programming.
Rings a bell.
How about Mr. Rogers?
Oh yeah.
Because Mr. Rogers,
there we go. Yeah.
You're closer to my brother's age, and he.
So you guys didn't have Mr. Rogers?
No, we had Mr. Rogers because PBS does reruns.
Oh,
right.
Okay. But I had real-time Mr. Rogers.
I think you had Prime Rogers.
Yep.
Okay, prime time Rogers.
Peak
okay,
Rogers.
Great.
Yeah, we had post-Prime Rogers.
Yeah.
But,
okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I would be all about that.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is also a great show. So we may have to cut this
Mr.
out.
Rogering.
How about Okay, so you guys may not know the two hippies that in the Magical Garden, Paula and. No. I might need to Google it, but there were these two hippie chicks, and they were in the Magical Garden, and they would do sing-alongs, and that might have been PBS also.
Are you talking about Lamb Chop Sing-Along?
I'm not, but it's all in that.
Yeah.
That same era.
Yeah.
There is a lot from that era, and just this would be late 80s, early 90s, and it's just. And kids programming goes on since, forever. There's always been some iteration of educational programming. But
okay, so to get my mind wrapped around what I witnessed this afternoon, This is my Mr. Rogers, essentially.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay,
If Mr.
that's
Rogers was a dog.
helpful.
Yes.
This is helpful.
Yes.
Thank you.
So yeah, it's obviously it's a show meant to be educational.
Yes.
In that it's supposed to teach you about very famous literature and then apply it in a way that's relatable.
Right.
I'm assuming. Sometimes, we've seen it, they do it in ways that I think are creative. Sometimes it's, a little bit off.
Sometimes it's insane.
Sometimes, yeah, most of the time it's bonkers.
Straight up crazy.
Well, it's like kind of like a lofty sort of.
It is a very complex premise.
Yeah.
It's ambitious.
It is
Yeah.
Very
ambitious.
Especially
yeah,
to
it's
the
really
base this
ambitious.
show entirely around a live dog,
Mm-hmm.
and that you have to have act, not only in the Oakdale world, like the,
Right.
the real world, but also in these sort of fictionalized,
Well, yeah, that's the whole
plays.
rub of that.
I know.
And I do have some notes on the dog's acting.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't
I'm excited to
Oh,
hear
it's good.
Are we-
Most of the time he's been very, very good.
Good and okay,
very
good.
flexible.
Okay, so for me, and this is just out as a.
Oh, hold on. One sec. Hold on.
Sorry, did I like turn the mic off?
Is it
Blanking?
flashing?
Yeah.
Click it again.
Okay, cool.
Hold on.
Yeah, I killed them.
And we're good. No,
Okay.
we're
And we're
good.
good. And we're
We
good.
just lost you first.
Okay, great. So, like, for me, as a new viewer,
Yeah.
you just have to take it, like, from what I experienced. And
Yeah.
it's like, maybe this isn't his episode where he turns out all the tricks in terms of acting. But I found him to be a little dead behind the eye.
Okay. Yeah.
And not because they were dog eyes.
Right. Like, I was like, I don't know that he's got the chops, like a Marley and Me kind of deal. Like, I don't know if
Ooh,
he's
okay.
turning out some of the performance elements that I was kind of hoping to see.
Yeah.
The voice does a lot.
Yeah, he did a lot of voices in this one, a lot of variations of
Yeah.
voices. And we'll kind of dive into the British accent because, as we now, I guess we're discuss it, it's, the topic of today is the Hounds of Baskerville. And I remember not reading this book, but I do own it and it's on my shelf.
Yeah.
And I
I
never
recall
actually,
actively not reading it.
Correct.
Yeah.
but knowing about it because I watched this show as a kid.
Oh, okay.
And also I think just in other forms, I think this is a very famous book.
Mm-hmm.
This is a
probably
very famous episode.
yeah.
This is like one of the because I believe there may be one other Sherlock Holmes episode. I could be mistaken, but
There is one more. It's I forget who. Oh, it's the one with the woman in the picture and all that
Okay.
stuff. Yeah, where they burned down the house.
almost everyone that's watched Wishbone remembers the Sherlock Holmes episode. I don't know
Wow.
what it was. I don't know if it was Wishbone with the little hat on.
Yeah, his little cute little
But
Sherlock
that was-
outfit.
That was a nice,
that was
the
the
hat.
first thing I thought of when John
Yeah.
said like, "Let's do Wishbone." I was like, he had that sweet Sherlock Holmes episode.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So this is a very special episode.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for this.
Yeah. Oh, great. I'm so honored to be here.
So let's just dive right in. We're just gonna kind of dive into the story
Let's
and
do
we'll
it.
kind of unpack it as we
Yeah,
kind of go
yeah.
along. So we open the episode on stock footage from the BBC programming Planet Earth. And it's like the moon and there's like clouds and it's like stormy and I just wanted Richard Attenborough to be like coming in there and talking. That's my opening joke. And so then we do like the Wishbone is searching for something in an alleyway.
Right.
He's looking for something. It's all from his POV. It's like a kind of monster cam, and he's looking and he's going through an alleyway, and all the garbage is everywhere. It looked like the alleyway that Bruce Wayne's parents were killed in. It kind of had this sort of 80s like Tim Burton-y vibe to it, like Gotham. But I think it was a very interesting way to start the episode.
Mm-hmm.
We opened before on a monster cam Wishbone POV.
First
I think
episode.
the Tom Sawyer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First episode.
You
Must have
know.
felt good to see that kind of work come back.
Yeah, come back.
Interesting camera work is good, especially when we're really trying to like get into the same mindset as Wishbone.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think they do it enough. I feel like you don't see it from Wishbone's
You
perspective.
need more
sometimes.
Wishbone POV.
Yes.
Those steady
Okay.
cams back then were heavy though.
Oh yeah.
Like they were real expensive.
Do you think they shot this on film or digital?
This is tape. This is tape because so part of the problem with trying to get like high quality episodes of this because it's not even all available digitally. A lot of the episodes were only even like put out on VHS. They're not even on DVD.
Okay, that makes sense.
It has kind of, most of it does have this very it's kind of like a Days of Our Lives kind of feel to it in a way.
Like a little Vaseline over the camera lens.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
you can't really make out features, places, or things
Correct.
necessarily
Yes.
when you watch it. It's a little,
and also like the acting quality for some of these actors they have, they're just barely getting by.
Oh man, they're trying though.
And especially with the first actor that shows up. So Wishbone's going through this alleyway, and there's this random guy in like a pink polo, and this is like the middle of the night. He's like, "Get out of here, Wishbone, go home." And I'm just like, "Wait, who is this guy? I've never seen him before."
Well, everybody knows Wishbone.
Yeah, apparently, he's famous.
It's a small town.
But so then he goes to, so he sees that trash has been littered everywhere. Someone's been going through all the trash cans, knocking them over, making a mess. He goes over to another house. This apparently is a Miss Hernandez house, and sees that there's paint been spilled, and there's paw prints, and there's also things that have been chewed, and it just looks like there's some sort of I guess some dog has been running wild. Carnage is a great example of that. And he's like, I need to find out who did this. And he's like, well, who else was a great detective? And he looks there's some weird reflection in this window, and then all of a sudden it turns into a book, which is The Hounds of Baskerville.
Right.
And he's like, yes, Sherlock Holmes.
And is that stock in every episode? You have the book.
He usually finds a book or thinks about the book.
Yeah.
Sometimes if it's like in the Joe and Ellen's house, he'll run to Ellen's library and like pull the book out, or it'll already be out or something like that. Yeah.
Ellen's a librarian.
Yeah,
I didn't
the
know
mom
that.
character. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
The mom?
Yeah, the mom is a librarian. So it's something that goes a long way to explain how this dog is so well read.
Yeah.
Right.
He's got a lot of time on his hands. Joe's
Yeah.
at school. She's at work. He's got to sit at home. He's got all these books.
He's got
And does he
basketball
knock
practice.
a book out with his nose or?
I think sometimes he'll paw it out.
Yeah, he
Sometimes
can paw it out.
it'll just be conveniently placed there, and like out in the open, and it'll be like, it just meant for this.
Since a lot of these books are things I was supposed to read, and because it's a podcast, I'm going to let you know I'm doing air quotes when I say that. When I was in, K through 12, these are probably the books Joe has taken home from school to read, but is neglecting to read. So Wishbone is just going to read them for himself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So they're just laying around neglected.
Yeah.
He dives in. Wow. That's really brings it together.
And so we're introduced to the Hounds of Baskerville, Sherlock Holmes. We cut to its turn of the century, London. We're in Sherlock Holmes's office with, we're gonna play a clip here of this scene and
turn of the previous century.
Yes, when I say turn of the previous century, I don't mean 1999.
You could have made that term, but now
Talking about 1901.
yes.
Gentlemen, welcome to Baker Street. Now, let's review your case.
I love his
Sir Henry,
little outfit.
Your home, Baskerville Hall, has a dark secret.
I think Watson looks like
Evil
Matt
lies
Walsh.
In the empty, unhappy land.
Matt Walsh?
Yeah.
I was gonna look
the
it up.
Baskervilles
I
have a
was gonna
criminal
go,
past.
and then I did the math. I'm like, I don't think it can be Matt Walsh.
He looks like Matt Walsh's
Wicked
like
Hugo
dad.
Baskerville
I
brought a
thought the
curse
same
on the
thing.
whole family.
I watched how they composited this scene, special effects wise. It was masterful.
Legend says
Well,
Totally
that
can notice
Baskervilles
it.
who
Do
walk
they do
alone
that
on
at the end
moor
of every
night
Yeah.
episode?
be pursued and killed
Oy
by
vey.
a giant.
Sometimes they're
super-
like-
They're trying to get a lot done in this show.
Yeah, not only are they teach you about
Editing.
books, they're gonna teach you about
Editing
production,
process.
and they taught us
Aye,
about
aye,
wire
aye.
working once. And
Do people watch this high as adults, or?
I would say so.
Yeah, that
Maybe for
felt.
our series finale.
Yeah, well,
I definitely felt that was an element I was missing as I was watching it.
Generation after
I love how
generation of
Watson's like
Baskervilles has suffered
almost like a
under the
movie. He had to
curse.
turn it off. He had to turn off the
Don't
map.
believe it. It's simply an old fairy
I
tale.
feel like I was a little bit incepted
what you
here
will.
because Wishbone went into
Henry's
his like
uncle,
own thoughts
Sir
to bring us
Charles, was
to
the
here,
latest
and then we were
victim.
watching
I
someone
want you to
else's story being
investigate.
told
My
in
uncle's
Wishbone's thoughts
death
of Sherlock
was a
Holmes.
case of heart failure.
Your uncle took this curse very seriously.
His expression.
The
was-
idea of a ghastly
priceless.
hound haunted him till the very moment of his death.
Despite Mortimer's fears, I intend to go to Baskerville Hall to claim my inheritance.
Dr. Mortimer, a few questions if I may. You examined the body?
Yes, And
So
near to
here,
it
Daniel, you notice what's
were
interesting is
footprints
Wishbone's able to actually just talk to them like a person.
Right.
of a
And they're hearing
gigantic
him.
hound.
But in Oakdale
Watson,
world,
we cannot
they
let
can't.
fear cloud our
Different.
minds.
Oh, sorry, Holmes.
oh,
There were no marks on the body.
I like how he
No
manages to
indications of
go
death
back
by
and forth
animal?
on the other side
Then let's
every
not
time
blame
the
the
lightning
dog right
flashes
away.
in the
Stick
room.
to the facts.
It's pretty cute.
I know.
all right. So basically, the gist of that scene is Henry Baskerville, this terrible actor, who's not even trying a British accent. He's just like, my father's
Yeah.
estate is going to be with me, and then he, I guess, is inheriting his father's estate and his money. The doctor, because his father just died, Charles Baskerville just died of a heart attack after seeing a wolf or some sort of hound that was going to attack him.
Right.
And so they go dive into this whole thing about the Baskerville family is cursed, and they're cursed to die if they walk alone in the woods. You know.
It's a pretty easy thing to just sort of avoid,
Yes.
you know?
And Henry's
Honestly.
confident that there's nothing out there, and the Dr. Mortimer, his, I guess, physician, is like, there could be a beast out there.
Well,
and,
grab a buddy.
you know, and Sherlock's like, well, I'm gonna get down to business on this. I'm gonna figure out what the mystery is behind the hound.
Let's
And
not forget, this is like 100 years ago.
yeah,
There's not a lot going on. So
You gotta be alone in the woods.
right, you're bored. So that's like how these like awful things would happen. They're like, there might be a murderer out in the woods. All right, well, let's go look. Let's
Yeah.
all just go out at night in the storm and try and
let's go
find
figure
out
it
for
out.
ourselves.
But so Sherlock does something interesting. He does a twist. He sends Watson to Baskerville, but doesn't, and says, "I'm staying here. You go," and separately decides to go himself, but doesn't tell anyone that he's going. He's gonna, do it in secret, incognito, like a good detective, I guess. I don't know. Except so. Though I just want to say that whole scene, it felt like because I do watch Downton Abbey. It reminded me of Downton Abbey, but because it was a dog, like a talking dog in the middle of the scene, it's just something it's just so weird. And that they're all, trying British accents, and they're trying to be like serious, and it's just it's something weird now with the dog overall. But,
Yeah, I'll say, you know.
So hold on. Turn this to after there. Let's see. So we cut back to Oakdale, and where we get a first glimpse of Mrs. Hernandez,
okay.
the neighbor,
Okay.
and her first line is, "Look at this mess."
I thought she was the mom originally because I didn't know who mom
man.
was.
And we had never seen this character before.
Really?
Yeah.
This is the first time. So I was like, who is this woman?
You were in for such a treat because Ellen is delightful.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, the mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ellen's great.
So, yeah. So,
What did
Just
you-
out of curiosity,
Oh, here we
what about her is so great?
Oh, Ellen?
Yeah.
Oh, she's like the perfect TV mom.
you get a little bit in this episode. She is pretty chill.
Okay.
Really chill.
Kind of doesn't give a shit about
No.
things. Like,
Nope.
when everyone, because there's all these eccentric characters that live in this neighborhood, like Wanda, and even, like some of the kids are kind of weird, but like, she's just like, all right, whatever.
Just shakes that brown bob and.
Yeah.
Now, is the dog always getting into trouble, or the neighbors always up in arms about what?
This
the
is not the
dog
first
has
time he's been
done?
arrested.
Okay.
He's
But
been
are they
to the
usually
pound before.
Aggravated
Yeah.
with the dog.
Well, especially Wanda, the next door neighbor, the kind of eccentric woman. She's just like,
She's a crazy cat lady who I think is on drugs.
yeah.
By the way, I would love to play that character.
Oh,
you know, if I had my druthers of anybody in this show, I would be like, absolutely.
She kind of has the most to work with, I feel like.
Yeah, she kind of turned it out.
Yeah. There are, I think, scenes where she has whereas Ellen is probably the least expressive.
Right.
She is the most expressive.
Yeah, I felt like she, as well as I, definitely has a degree from theater in a SUNY school. You know, I felt confident
got
that she
that.
had that.
She had she did community theater also after that for a long
No
time,
doubt.
and then just nailed that interview, that audition.
Yeah,
for
she came
Wanda.
in hot.
So Wishbone, after sort of escaping Mrs. Hernandez and her like Lucy, like kind of like whatever mentality.
This was the first like really stereotypical kind of racist caricature they've had on this show. Barring Bark That Bark.
Yeah. Barring the whole African Tales, that thing, yeah.
Barring that episode where we did he did a tale, like an African American folk tale, where one of the characters was like a little weirdly racist.
Yeah. Well, and also Wishbone put on like a West Indies accent, so it was pretty bad. But anyways, so Wishbone needs to find who the culprit is. So he's scoping out the other suspects potentially in the neighborhood. Right. And first he sees Fritz, the Dalmatian, who's playing fetch with his neighbor. I thought it was interesting that he's like, well, it can't be Fritz because he's dumb, because he doesn't get the ball. I found it funny. First it like shows him throwing the ball, and it cuts back to the owner's like kind of just crotch. And I thought I was like, are they like accentuating something with the crotch? I'm like, oh no, it's just like he has the ball still. Yeah. Like, and
what would they be accentuating? Just
he kind of had a sizable package and like a tight shorts.
Like, let's get this in. Let's layer this into our PBS children's special.
Yeah,
like
because it was only from the waist down. And I was like, I don't know who this guy is, but maybe it was the guy from the alleyway in the beginning, because it kind of had the same color like polo
and the same type of crotch.
No, they didn't. So they only showed him from the waist up in the alleyway.
Okay.
So I don't know.
If that's
I'm just saying the guy had a package.
Yeah.
And then, so he's like, okay, it can't be Fritz. He's too dumb of a Dalmatian. And then he's like, maybe it's Tippy, the little Shih Tzu.
Yeah.
It's like Tippy just got a new haircut. It's like, what is she hiding? And it's like, and then he looks over and Mrs. Hernandez is looking at him. And he's like, oh, let me just walk away.
I don't like Mrs. Hernandez. I gotta put this out there. This is the first time we've seen her, and she's got like just the worst thing about Wanda. The thing that annoys me is how much she hates Wishbone.
Yeah.
Like, she hates Wishbone.
She does.
But I love everything else about her because she's out of her mind. But Miss Hernandez is just kind of like fueled hatred. That's like all
whereas
she
like
has. She doesn't have anything likable about her.
Yeah. Whereas Wanda's like a little bit lovable with her, being eccentric. Mrs. Hernandez just seems like
she has it out for him.
Yeah, because we haven't had time to like really get to know her. At least I hope maybe we'll get to know her.
If I was like in court, I wouldn't want Miss Hernandez to be in the jury because she was just it was him. It was that dog, and now she's just going after him. There's dogs everywhere else, but she's like looking at him.
And what's crazy about that scene, not to jump ahead, but the scene where they catch Wishbone,
yeah, she was
and
like
she takes
at
the photo.
Freaking ready.
They were like literally standing there, and you can literally see the animal control woman's foot in the shot when Wishbone first walks up. Like, clearly, it was all done in one like kind of take, kind of thing. I'm like, and they do it so quickly that Mrs. Hernandez saw the other dog on the porch eating the stuff and rolling it away right when they caught him. And yet they're like, oh, we got Wishbone.
We kind of to believe that the police officer was just there on site waiting for a culprit.
I think the town has it out for Wishbone as well.
Yeah. Do you guys watch Making a Murderer?
Yeah.
There was a lot of similarities in American Murder and that the whole town wanted the Talbots, and they wanted Wishbone Stephen Avery Talbot.
All right, I see.
Wrongfully accused. Everyone had it out for him.
Evidence was like.
Except Wishbone is like smart enough to like try and save himself.
Yeah. He's got the...
Unlike Steve Avery.
Right. What also made me think of it was the animal control lady, the sort of authority lady. She kind of had this weird Wisconsin accent. Right. She's like, oh, I'm calling in the 1, 2, 3. It's like, blah, blah, blah. Like, and then, but it was kind of, I didn't know her accent was all over the place, but it did remind me of some sort of Wisconsin, Minnesotan accent.
How do you feel about the fact that Wishbone seems to just be allowed to just roam around and do what he wants, wherever he wants?
The neighborhood seemed to lend itself for that kind of behavior, Are we talking about in the real time or in real world? It seemed like all the dogs kind of had a little bit of flexibility where that was concerned. They weren't, when he was on that rope, I did feel like that's not how Wishbone kind of wants to exist. And I did feel like tethered down as well, seeing him on that rope. So
especially when the sprinklers are going off and he's like kind of flinching because the water is just like hitting him.
He's getting waterboarded, basically.
Yeah. I thought I was like, this is kind of abusive to keep this dog like, right there.
100%. He was completely being tortured.
So yeah, the whole thing is that the running through line in Oakdale world is that there is a dog out there that is causing havoc, and everyone thinks it's Wishbone.
Okay,
And Wishbone,
okay, got it.
yeah. So Wishbone, it's like someone is framing me. The Manitowoc Police County
Yeah.
is framing him for a murder he did not commit. Anyway.
And every episode, it's other dogs or
Nope.
No.
No,
There's, was
I
there
think
once? Or was that
the
on
Romeo and
dog?
Juliet episode, he falls in love with a beagle
Yeah.
at the pound, and so
Which
that
did some hard time.
that one has a dog in it, and I think this is the first episode since then that has like
Like a
other
central
dogs.
character.
in
Yeah.
it.
wow. he
Which
did.
notice none of them can speak. Like he can't talk to them.
Right.
Yeah, which I wonder if he's sort of a mutant or something, or some sort of like special power that was given to him. I don't know.
You can't know. That's the whole thing.
What if he's it's like that movie where he's the ghost of Joe's dead dad that's taken
Oh.
over.
Yeah, so Joe's
Just-
father's gone.
That's
Yeah.
sad.
Yeah, he died.
And now that you say that, I did kind of feel a sadness from Joe.
Yeah.
Joe
That I
has got
couldn't
a lot of
really-
angst for being only like 11 or 12.
No,
So-
they're teenagers, I'd say. I'd say they're probably about 13.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
13?
13, 14, yeah. They don't seem like they are in any grade lower than 7th grade. They're probably all around 13.
And those are his two BFFs?
Yep.
Yep,
Okay.
Sam and David,
It's his crew.
who
his posse.
we'll get to in a second here. But
Oh, man.
let me catch up on
Yeah.
what happened in Baskerville land.
Take
So
me there.
Sherlock secretly arrives while Watson's there officially kind of scoping around. We get a nice little hide and seek montage of him being in the suit of armor, him being like behind a painting, him being like kind of around while the butler's like cleaning. He comes across the painting of Sir Hugo Baskerville, like the original guy that apparently it's all based on a curse. And then he's like, well, I'm going to go check out what Watson's doing because I can't find him here in the main hall. So he goes and follows Watson to the neighbor, which is Mr. Stapleton, and his weird facade of a house. Like clearly was like a one wall set because they only have like one angle from it, which is like straight ahead, and they don't show any other angles. But yeah,
Is that the house that we see at the end? No. That's not the photo that they show us how they edited the photo in.
no, it's like
No,
because
no,
remember it's all
I've
that
seen already.
Okay.
that photo, like whatever they
Yeah.
put the hall, that's the main hall, and they're leading into Mr. Stapleton's house,
Okay.
which is the other direction. But I thought it was interesting that Mr. Stapleton is immediately evil when they like immediately show him. And he's just like, well, yes.
Yeah.
And he's like, poor Charles, he got, had a terrible, terrible heart attack. And then I was like, okay, something's up with this guy.
It's like
And
that guy, Avi.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's Mr. Stapleton, and he has a sister. And the sister is like dating Henry Baskerville, the guy we
There's a
seen
lot
earlier.
that happens in such a short amount of time here.
Yeah, but it's weird. So because they come in later in that scene, and Wishbone's watching this all from the window, and there's this like they're all just kind of talking about well, what happened to Charles, and Henry like is gonna inherit his money, and he's like, well, what are you gonna do with the money? He's like, well, I'm gonna spend it on school and children, and Mr. Stapleton's like, well, isn't that gonna be quite expensive of the fortune? And he's like, no, well, it's good, and yeah, so something's not right with Jack Stapleton.
Am I safe to assume that like I had a little trouble following the Baskerville story when I watched it?
Guys, when I tell you, I followed none of it.
Okay.
I mean, when I tell you, I followed none
It
of
is very confusing, and also they probably it's better told in the actual book.
Really? Better in the book? Better
Probably.
told story
Probably.
rather than
Probably.
a half an episode, basically, of a doggy show?
So,
I mean, I'm sure it's complicated to tell. Look, again,
Yeah.
it's ambitious.
Yeah.
To tell a full book in an episode of
sometimes they do a really good job of it because
Right.
they get like the three key scenes
key
that you need to
things,
know,
they're in and
the
they're
spark
out.
notes of it.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't do it well, and I think what's crazy about this thing. So while Sherlock is looking in, he sees Mr. Stapleton make this weird stance with a butterfly net. He like kind of does like a weird pose, and he's like, "Huh," and then he goes back and looks at the painting of Hugo something or whatever, or Baskerville, and he's saying, where have I seen that before? And somehow he makes some weird connection that they are related, and
That's what was so wild about this.
So
I was so confused by
so
this.
and it's revealed. I guess he makes the conclusion that Jack Stapleton is really Jack or he's some sort of descendant of the Baskerville name, and that they're related. And so he's trying to get the fortune too, and he wants to kill Henry, and he wants to. So he's gonna. And that's why he created this hound.
There were too many moving parts for them to like try to accurately portray this book in this episode. I felt like they did a really bad job of conveying the story because there usually aren't this many characters. Usually in the retelling of the story, you have Wishbone and like his main like protagonist and the main antagonist, and then there's little background characters, but there aren't like you don't have to remember names, you don't have to remember connections to people. And in this one, like you could easily lose the thread because it's all just a bunch of old white dudes that all have like English accents and they're all wearing like the same bad clothes. So like they all sort of blended together for me.
I did have to I watched it a few times. And I was like, oh wait, the guy in the beginning was not the guy in the middle,
right?
Because they were kind of the same facial hair and the that was really confusing.
Well, and I do think that like, you know, if this is like the quintessential episode where when you said, you know, hey, let's do Wishbone, let's do a series on that, Chris was like, yeah, this is the episode. I want to give just a quick shout out to the costume department because like they were like, look, this doesn't make any sense. It's going to be really hard for adults, definitely kids to follow. So we are going to get the cutest hat known to like the cutest
adorable
hat situation for this dog, and we're going to sell it. And they sold it, guys. They sold the hell out of it.
Every time, if you look up Wishbone on Google, it's the first image that pops up of him and the little cap and the little coat thing.
Maybe it's the other Sherlock Holmes episode that's better, but I think what they did here is they made it so sort of confusing that as a kid, like even as an adult, I was still like, I don't know how he came to that conclusion, but as a child, I would have been like, whoa, he figured it out. I have no idea how he figured that out. That was amazing.
It's a little.
That's really cute.
It's better than the modern day Sherlock, like the Robert Downey Jr. movies and the Benedict Cumberbatch like miniseries.
Oh, this is wildly better than that Benedict.
Because those ones, what I hate about them is that he solves it, and then he begins to lecture the audience about all the clues they missed during the episode, and being like, "Well, then I saw this, and then I did this, and then blah 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 blah." And it's like, okay, now I'm an idiot.
One thing that's missing though is they didn't have Wishbone have the heroin addiction that Sherlock Holmes has. So,
and I felt that. I was missing that.
There's a follow-up episode, though, so maybe.
Fingers crossed.
I mean, it can still happen.
So we're going back to Oakdale now?
Yeah, so...
I'm so happy to be back in Oakdale. I gotta be honest. Like, that's where I feel happy.
Yeah, so basically, you know, he's been framed. But he does see who the culprit is, which is this hound, a bloodhound, I guess is the type of dog. And it's this like big kind of slobbering thing that just is like digging up Wanda's yard and going crazy. Wishbone follows him and is like, I know this, but then he gets caught by Mrs. Hernandez and the animal control and
/ police officer. Or was it animal control? Like,
well, they just call her officer.
Officer.
It's a small town. She wears many hats.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
They got a low budget.
Kind of a V-Chill vibe, you know, like she was wanting to crack the case, but she also like there was a warmth to her.
Yeah, she kind of reminded me like of. She had a little bit of that kind of bureaucratic kind of just. This is my job, going through
steps.
Yeah, like I've seen it all.
Yeah, been there, done that. Yeah. Look, it's not like what I want to do, but it's kind of what I have to do to keep this town safe.
Yeah, and I feel like she probably just gets a lot of annoying phone calls from people, like being like, "Wow, this dog
like
is blah blah blah." Yeah, like just constantly chattering in her like all the time. So she's just like, "All right, let's just take care of this now."
Right.
You know, like so, like she's what I want out of a law enforcement, you know, officer.
That kind of vibe.
Yeah. But the unfortunate part is that because Wishbone is now a repeat offender, they've been charged a citation apparently of $150.
A lot of money.
Whoa, in 1990s money.
It's a
I know
lot
that
of
is
money.
crazy.
Whoa.
But you're right. The mom, now that you're saying why you like the mom so much, she took it in stride.
Yeah.
She didn't even react to the fine, like
No.
the amount. It was the
She's
kids
got
that were
that.
like, "What?"
Yeah.
You know?
She's got that library money.
Yeah.
That library cash.
I feel
Sweet,
like
sweet library
she
money.
had a really like high insurance policy on her husband's life.
Yeah.
Because she's a librarian and that house is pretty huge.
And she's sitting pretty.
Yeah.
It's a nice, like mid-century,
house.
like Frank Lloyd Wright type of house. It's
Especially
like,
for like a single mom.
pretty
So, and oh man, I just had a thought right before with this mom, and it left. I'll have to circle back to
It'll come
It'll
back.
come back.
It'll come back.
Oh no, it wasn't with the mom. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. It's just me getting to know Wishbone for the first time, so I might be off on this.
Okay.
But was Wishbone hitting on the pest? The
she did
patrol
say
officer?
he did say twice
nice eyes.
eyes, and then when she's leaving at the end, he's like, "Tell her she had nice
Yeah.
nice
He's like,
eyes."
nice eye. He was like, get her. He was like, please let her get this information.
I thought he was just doing it to like, "Hey, let me off easy" type of thing, or like, "Let me
know.
smooth over the
I felt
punishment."
like it was a little more than that, but like
I will say, though, I was
respect
not-
whatever you guys think.
You know,
Even when he said that, though, I was not impressed with her eyes.
in
Like, I was-
Wishbone's like
yeah, I would say nice hair over it. Like the
Yeah.
puffy hair was kind of noticeable,
Yeah.
but yeah.
in Wishbone's fantasies, like we've seen him fall in love with humans, so he may have like a cross-special like because he's always playing like a man, so maybe like he really wishes to be like he's like Data from Next Generation. He's not actually human, but he aspires to be.
Right.
So like internally he feels like a human, and so that's why he's playing out all these stories, and that's why he's reading all these books, because maybe he feels like it allows him to like fantastically experience like get a part of the human experience. And so when he sees her, like that sort of like weird fetishal like bestial cross species,
Yeah.
it's coming out a little bit right there.
I felt it, I felt it, but I mean, I don't, again,
Yeah.
like you guys have a better working knowledge of Wishbone and Wishbone's ways.
and just really quick, I have to ask,
Yeah.
without
It's
us
a
saying
free
anything,
space. Do you have
where
to
do you think the town of Oakdale exists?
Oh God.
Oh yeah, we've been going back and forth.
I want to
on
get
this.
like a totally outside view on this
Yeah.
without any priming. Or
Because
prepping
you
from
saw
us.
enough of the outside,
I guess I
environment to
did.
kind of see, like, make guesses
and the
to
people
make-
that live there.
Like Ohio?
Oh, that's a
hey,
new one.
that's like, remember last time I was saying like maybe closer to the Great Lakes area is something we should consider.
I've never been there.
I was thinking Pacific Northwest. He was thinking Northeast, but that
First,
might
I said
be-
Northeast, and then I think a couple episodes I switched it to like Maryland, Virginia area, and because I made this up, we never see winter. At least I don't remember ever seeing winter here. So I would assume that it's a place that maybe doesn't get snow or like change seasons. That
The thing is for me is they're like the white families are so white, but they're that like West Coast white.
Okay,
They're
so-
not that like hard East Coast white in the north, or that like slow kind of scary like southern white on the East Coast. And they don't feel central.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
they feel to me like they're West Coastal. Like they seem like a southern like California family.
yeah.
I didn't get that entire. I love that. I love the way you got to that. I'm with it, except for the fact that I don't think so.
Well, I'm just thinking like Miss Hernandez, she had a thick accent. So
Yes.
that's just like I'm feeling like more points in this West
And
Coast.
like I was saying, the animal
SoCal.
control lady kind of had a vaguely, Greater Lakes accent a little bit.
Yeah,
you
so
know,
maybe,
it could
maybe
be.
we're looking like Great Lakes. Ohio's that's a good one.
I just want to play something really quick of Ellen on the
Okay.
phone
Looking forward
and
to that.
her phone acting.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, Mrs. Hernandez, that just doesn't sound like
Wait,
something
hold
Wishbone
on.
would
I'm
do.
sorry, guys. Can we just
Well,
can we
I'm
watch her
very
butter that
sorry.
bread one more time? Because
I-
there was
I
zero
promise I will
butter.
ask
Like
Joe
what
as
the
soon
heck?
as he gets home.
She is. This
Okay.
is something with
Bye-bye.
her and the kids. Like their version of acting is just like, hey, I'm super like. They're just showing how
see.
human
Uh-huh.
beings like.
Well,
Be-
Mrs.
it's
Hernandez, that just doesn't sound
like
like
a
something
robot
Wishbone would
version of
do.
how human beings behave.
Well, I'm very sorry.
What? But okay, so
I promise
Did
I will
anything
ask
get
you
butter?
as
I don't
soon as
even know
Nothing.
what
It was like.
wait. So watch it. Wait. This is this. So her response time. Here, watch this.
Hello. Oh, Mr. Robbins. Really?
Ah!
What could he have said in the the time of her being, "Hello, Mr. Robbins"? Really? Like,
I've got your dog, or I found your dog.
like your dog is dead.
Yeah.
Really?
He spit it out, whatever it was.
That's just like, I think, bad phone acting 101,
Right, 'cause
where
she wasn't thinking about
or
what.
wasn't actually talking to anybody. It's like clearly
yeah.
just, say your lines, and you get a call from Mr. Robinson, and you'll just
But
boom,
most
boom, boom.
phone acting, like a lot of times you don't even hear people say like hello. Like a lot of times when agreeing, they're just right to the
Yeah.
action on the phone. They're just like, oh, the thing is there? Okay, like there was no, hey, hi, how are you? Oh, hey, it's me, it's Chris. That doesn't happen on a lot of like TV
Yeah, she
shows.
was doing a lot of business. She had the phone. She was moving it from one crook of the neck to another crook of the neck. She was buttering and then throwing a piece of bologna on top. It was a very
gross, whatever she
odd
was making.
thing. And then she was just impressed with her ability to go from the range of, oh, I'm greeting someone, to something terrible has happened. Like she was like really feeling her execution on that.
She was showing her,
Her
range, incredible range.
I also noticed that the piece of furniture in that room had like it was like chewed up.
Well, that was going from the Mrs. Hernandez's deck chair that got chewed by the hound. So
Oh, that was just like a cross pan.
yeah,
They like a lot of slides.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that slide transition seems to be.
It was so smooth, I didn't catch it. I just thought that was in her
Yeah.
house because she's so chill that she'd probably be like sitting there
it's
eating her like
it reminds
roast
me
bologna
of the
butter
Wonder
sandwich.
Years. Did you watch that show?
I
growing up?
did.
It's like it kind of
Yeah.
reminds me of that style of the show.
Really?
A little bit.
Like for me in my memory, Wonder Years was like no disrespect, but like such a good show.
Yeah, you got a point. But just kind of that like film from that type of perspective. It's not too like I don't know. It just kind of has that or like late 80s, early 90s kind of just appeal to it. So Joe, Sam, and David decide they are going to find evidence and clear Wishbone's
This
name.
is the scene I've been waiting for the whole
Yeah,
time.
this was.
Are we gonna?
amazing.
I want to play the.
Let's play the scene.
So
It
they
was
collect
great.
evidence, and they bring it back to David's house, like David's room. And that's what I want to play. This.
Well, and before you play it, just
Okay, I want to
before
hear
you
this.
play it, just the one thing I noticed is like they're collecting as evidence, and they seem pretty casual about it. Like they're like, oh cool, and then whatever happened between them collecting evidence and like getting to David,
Yeah.
they were so turned up to the heavens.
They were coked out of their minds.
They were because they didn't seem that crazed when they were collecting the evidence, and then they came in so hot. They couldn't. I mean, wow.
It is. Yeah, I noticed that too. I was like, they are so excited.
I've never been so excited. I can't even imagine.
Actually, this is the most excited I've seen in any of the episodes we've watched.
Did you ever do stuff like this when you were a kid though?
Yeah, no, I
would
can
do
totally-
shit like this as a kid. And so like I could see that where I would just be like in the process of like I'm looking for evidence, and then I would just be like the second like you thought you had something, your mind moves like a billion miles a minute,
Yeah.
and then like you end up in this weird place like this is what's going on. It's this big thing,
Yeah.
and it's like 'cause
But I think, Danny, you have a
you're a
great point where
child.
it's like the scene before that, they're just like, oh,
Here's this, and
he couldn't have
cool.
been that tall. He would have been this tall to over.
Measure this.
And they didn't really gather anything else other than that.
Yeah.
And then they cut
And
to
then
just.
they came in like
I think they just did a little bump, and then they.
that would answer it. I mean, and David really had to try to manage
He's
their
like,
expectations.
calm down,
Yeah.
people.
He was like, guys, I've been working on this. I've been in the search control center.
I've just
for
like
quite some
coded
time
a
now.
database program that can
Hey,
database
having much tuna
dogs
in here?
Yeah.
can
So-
I get this software?
Right. Look at it go.
based on path.
Based on paw
Hair,
and just
teeth.
dimensions, I
How-
think.
What is he loading in there? Is what I want to know.
There they go.
Where is he getting that?
Yeah, on the pig's nose, you know? And then too short to
Oh,
know.
boy.
One at a time, like at least 3 feet. No. Okay, I need the first sample. The garbage cans. The garbage cans were taken away. But that's okay.
It's like they're acting like they're Woodward and Bernstein. They just like discovered like some sort of like
The
secret.
dog had to be at least this high to know.
Anyone else love David's outfit?
I kind of love David in general. I have to say.
We're all big fans of David.
David's the favorite of the three.
Yeah.
Because he's the most like he's got like a lot of problems, but he's also
Okay, I'm
kind
ready to
of
print.
really smart and cool.
Found the match.
Dude, he found a match faster than like our police would be able to find like a
And
fake
it's
match.
okay. So it's a picture
of
looks
that
like,
dog.
of that dog.
Yeah,
Of that dog.
not the brand of dog or this like it's this
And it looks like
it's
a photo like you hand to like in a dossier to a spy of like here's your target, like it's like taken from a distance, sort of like incognito.
And I know, again, I didn't know he had this software to work with, but my takeaway when he was collecting his clues and he was like, okay, now I got to go work on this. I thought he was going to draw like a sketch artist.
Yeah, based on like the
on
measurements of the
measurements.
jaw.
And I was
like,
kind of looking forward to that, I got to be honest. But
No, but he takes it one step further and he just codes his own program, like a police database.
yes, he went hard.
I think actually, so David's got, as you can tell, David's loaded.
Oh,
Like
He's got a
Did you
printer.
say, like, as you can guess?
the tech in that room for this child is
Yeah.
out of control.
Yeah, I don't think I even thought this was his house. I think that
Oh,
I
this
don't
is
know
his-
where I
this is
thought
his
he was.
room. This isn't even his house. This is his own bedroom.
Oh, wow.
David is loaded. In a previous episode, he's on a headset and he's talking to someone like in another location. This is, pre-cell phone. Like, we don't know what's going on there. I think David's working for the NSA, or his dad does, and so he has ties to it. I think that's an actual database. I think that's a dog database.
I think he
that the
hacked
US
into the
government
animal control
collects.
database.
Wait, does his dad work for the NSA?
We don't know
No.
what his dad does. He just
Okay.
really likes making gumbo. That's the only thing we've learned about his dad.
And are the other kids like, gosh, he has so much money, or do they deal with it?
They
at
haven't
all?
brought it up.
They haven't brought. They're trying to.
But
just
they always like
be
to hang
cool.
out at David's
No,
room.
but also
Yeah.
look at Joe's place is pretty sweet
Nice.
for
But they have yet to hang out in Joe's room
Really?
for any reason. It's always Joe alone in his room.
Yeah, that's true.
There-
That's his quiet
any-
place. That's like his.
Yeah.
David's
special
room is
zone.
like their home base because I
Yeah.
feel like Joe and Sam are like, well, he's loaded and look at all his cool stuff.
That's their
Like,
base of
Right.
operations.
Yeah.
It's like HQ.
Right.
So yeah, I mean,
Fair.
I didn't see the arcade machine in this episode. Though.
no, it was
He must
it
have
was
gotten
framed
rid
out.
of it.
It was being used for something else. So yeah, let's just wrap up Baskerville really quick. There's this confrontation where Henry's walking in the woods for no reason at all. First, Mr. Stapleton gets over and tries to get some drunk, and he's got his sister tied up in the ceiling.
How did you feel about this, knowing this is a child's show? Because there's always something inevitably on an episode of Wishbone that seems out of place for children.
Yeah, no, it felt aggressive.
Especially when Watson shoots a dog 3 times. He kills that hound.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, this is a kid's show, and he murders the dog.
Well, I think like my overall thought was, do you guys know about the creators of the show? Have you kind of dealt with them at all?
We're slowly like researching them as we're
Okay.
watching the show, instead of, because I don't want to have too much
Right.
of like a.
I get that, but as I was watching it, I kept wondering, like, who are these people who created this? Were there drugs involved?
Oh yeah.
What's their mission? Like, what is it? What are they trying to get done here?
Yeah.
And it feels like it's not necessarily for children. Like, I don't know if children is the goal.
I don't think
Educating
it's for
children.
young children. I think it's maybe like 9 to teenage kind of range where it's
Right.
like you're probably going into late elementary, early junior high,
Yeah.
and you're starting to learn about like more complicated books and literature and stuff like that.
And I guess that's like a really dicey in terms of knowing what's good and what you can put on and
Yeah.
what you can. It's kind of a weird zone.
Yeah.
Because you're not dealing with super little kids and you're not dealing with older
Yeah.
kids. So it's kind of that.
Well, we
Yeah.
like discussing like in Tom Sawyer, they show like the murder of the one Doc Robinson, and then this one they show a murder of a dog, and it's like, I guess it's one of those things where like they are saying,
in the literature.
it's like this is American culture, and it's
Right.
like, or world culture, I guess, and it's like you can't hide these certain undeniable
Which I
facts,
appreciate,
and
I suppose.
yeah, it's like it's good that they didn't. Actually, I'm glad they probably did. Watson kills the dog instead of like scaring it off or something. It's like, oh, it's like it was okay.
But there's something like there's something about killing an animal,
Yeah.
which just seems so much worse, even still today, than like killing a person.
Right.
Especially like shooting and like murdering a dog on like a kids TV show about a cute little dog. They're also
Right.
showing like
Yeah.
another dog be shot to death.
Well, they don't really show the dog.
That's
They just show its
true.
like glowing eyes, and Watson kills it, and he's like, "There's some strange goo on my hand."
yeah,
and it's like
yeah,
the
that was
phosphorus.
so-
Like,
Oh.
so they save the day. They solve the mystery. They clear. I guess they have Mr. Stapleton arrested for murdering Charles or whatever, and he solves the mystery once again. And then in Oakdale.
So if I like quizzed you on the Hounds of Baskerville,
I would be coming up with 0. A big goose egg.
Uh,
I mean, don't publicly.
all you know is that
humiliate me.
there's the main guy and his assistant, and
Yeah, I got
you know,
that.
and that's about it. And they solve
And
mysteries.
does he always take the dog always take kind of the power position? Like he's going to be
The lead.
Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
You know, he's not
Oh.
going to be the Watson.
He's
ever.
always the title character.
He's no
He's
one's
always-
bridesmaid.
Right. He's always going to be.
Yeah. It's always
He's
going to
never
be the
going to be a
lead.
bottom.
Yeah, it's going to be
Yeah.
a top.
Top all the way.
Top. So the Oakdale story kind of ends when after they get their printout and they're looking for this dog. Apparently, and also there's a weird countdown because they have to prove that it's this hound by 5 o'clock, or else the citation sticks.
Right.
I don't know what like city thing does that. Like you can't
yeah.
appeal that. Okay. Now Ellen comes home. She's dressed like she came from A League of Her Own. She has like a baseball outfit with like the cap and everything.
I was into it.
I was
Yeah,
cute.
I was into it.
You were. I feel like you kind of have a. Do you have a
Oh,
crush
totally.
on her?
Oh yeah,
I don't hide that.
Do you have
He-
a crush on her?
I kind of view her more as like a mom character.
Or
Like,
like Chris is like trying to hit
I think
that?
he is full on.
Huh.
Oh yeah.
Interesting. I mean, I've seen your Tinder like choices, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't think you would swipe right.
No,
but apparently-
typically like I have an age limit, but,
but she
something about her.
something about her
Yeah.
just pushes it. All
Totally.
right.
You have age. It's like 21 to 31 plus Ellen Talbot.
Yeah.
So if she shows up, then she'll show up. So and then the episode just kind of wraps up with they find the hound in their kitchen. It broke into their back thing and just like chilling on their kitchen table.
Yeah.
How
That
convenient.
was
Yeah.
so weird.
Yeah.
I mean, with all the effort they put out, it's like
And
this. He's just there.
I think the whole point of the most of the bulk of the episode was
He's such a.
let's
Okay.
introduce the finding clues and deductive reasoning and figuring out who the culprit is, and it doesn't really matter about catching the culprit. They'll just I guess appear.
They'll just present themselves.
Yeah, when the
When the
truth-
time is right.
I think what really happened was the original script had them going out at night, finding the dog in the middle of the night and shooting it to death. And then someone was like, "We can't do this."
I like
and
when-
so they just took it. They threw out that last piece of paper, and they're like, "Well, we're here at the house, so get the dog in here and make it work."
Yeah.
And, yeah, I mean, when they do first walk in the kitchen, they're just like, "Oh my god, this is disgusting!" Like it, like just crapped on the floor or something.
Well, I also like that they, even after all of their research and the printout, they still had to measure the teeth and
Yeah, they're like,
you know,
"Oh, we
still-
need
they
to
were like, We're
prove."
gonna really have to still prove, and
Yeah.
the dog's just sitting
Beyond
in
a
their house.
reasonable doubt.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
I guess
reasonable doubt.
Again,
Wishbone
this isn't
is.
making a murderer. We're not
Right.
going to put that dog behind bars if he didn't deserve it.
Right.
That dog did remind me of the dog from Sandlot, the dog in the finale that takes the ball and they got a like the big slobbery dog and
Hercules? What was
I think
that?
it was called Hercules. Yeah, James Earl Jones.
We're just gonna make shows like that are like just out of your reach and and bring you back for them.
I like that. I think that's my sweet spot. You know, just
This is in a way a little bit like your own show.
That's true. I just simply come on podcasts and try because my show is learning about like what people 25 and under think is cool, and we kind of educate ourselves in that way, me and Emily Foster. And so yeah, I just want to stay in the dark and have the light come to me.
Yeah.
That's what I enjoy.
Except you're just learning about like what people thought was cool when they were 25 and under. Because now we're getting old.
It's like now it's like I'm already out of that bracket.
Yeah.
Sorry guys.
So
You're like, welcome to the club.
So yeah, Wishbone is admonished of his crimes, and the episode ends, I think, on a low point for Wishbone, just in terms of my personal view and him getting a massage. First
Yeah,
by
that's what like I did like think that also felt strangely sexual. I was like,
Yes. So,
it felt very
one-
like
I can imagine. Okay, so like first it's Watson and Sherlock, and Watson's basically petting Sherlock. Now I'm imagining him as a man,
who?
like Sherlock,
Huh?
like Wishbone's character here.
Okay.
Oh,
So,
okay. I
and
see
I'm
what you're
like,
saying.
imagine if this was two men and he's
Oh,
like
yeah.
petting him.
Wait, are all bets off when he's?
Well, I'm assuming
he-
people see him
as
as a
a
man.
dog.
No, I assume they
don't-
see him as a man.
Oh, I don't think that's true. I think they see him as a dog.
I think Wishbone transcends.
I think he
these.
kind of like he has like puns that are like dog-like, and he sort of plays with that. But I always assume that like people view him. I guess in this scenario, we're viewing him as a dog.
Because we have a screenshot of
Yeah, this
Watson
is really
rubbing his
weird.
head.
Yeah.
From my experience of it, I just figured they're like, hey, Sherlock is a dog who.
He's the best dog detective in London.
But like, they're not going to get wrapped up in the dog of it all. But they don't see him as a man.
But it is weird though. Like this dude was just like questioning him, and now he's like getting pet by him. Like
Yeah. He's like,
it is kind of weird.
'Cause
Like I wouldn't like come sit next to John and just start playing with his like hair.
But it makes it also because it flips the script on their relationship, because at first it seemed like, oh, Sherlock is the dominant one,
Right.
and now it seems like Watson's the dominant one by him sort of petting him in a very dominant manner. I guess I don't know. They have a very complicated relationship.
It's complicated.
But the low point here, I think, is when the noise that Wishbone makes when Joe
It's
is
really not okay.
Thank you, Watson. You were indeed a big help. Sir Henry is safe, and Stapleton's punishment
He's
is
like,
assured.
yeah, whatever.
A little to the left, please.
That was close, huh? But you knew he was in our house all along, didn't you?
Like, it's just not okay.
Were you saying something?
He's grunting.
Lovely.
He's literally grunting.
I think if people listen to just the audio of that,
It's not okay.
it's
Like, I promise
great.
you.
Yeah, it's not okay, and it made me feel uncomfortable.
Like, why? I'm like trying to think, what should he have done?
Like he could have just been like, I don't.
Or just like,
That's nice. Right there, right? Oh yeah,
Yeah,
right. I'm
that
like,
would have been better.
just a little on the right there. Yeah,
Right.
that's good. Yeah.
Got it.
But
You know, yeah.
and maybe just more like more vocal about as far as words,
he
more
was like,
words involved. He's like,
Like, that's insane.
oh. Yeah, so that wraps up the Slobbery Hound episode of Wishboning.
our audience's ears are slobbery after we just did all that content.
I know, and
Got
on a
real
very
intimate with our
very
listeners.
seductive moment. Thank you, Deanna, for
Did you say
joining.
deductive moment?
Yes. Deductive. But thank you for joining us
Oh,
on
man,
such a
this was so
wonderful.
much fun.
This was fun. We're gonna do a little bit of plugs right now.
Well, before we do, because before we started, I just want to make sure that we went through all the questions.
Oh, yeah, that's
because
right.
You said before we started recording that you had
I don't.
couple of
You
questions.
know what? I think we
and
did
you-
answer a lot of them. We didn't talk about Karis Palm Turpin.
Who's that?
Oh, you guys don't know who that is? Karis Palm Turpin.
What? So do we?
Is this the actress name?
No, that's the name that came up at the end for the editor.
Oh.
Oh.
Just a question,
yes.
like, is she here every week? Is she?
No. Let me actually. We're already here at the last episode. Are you talking about the little tacked on part here where we
Yeah.
explore? Okay.
Just wanted to get, like, she was so proud of herself. Like, really.
Yeah, they don't always necessarily have these end pieces, but I'd say like the majority.
It's when they do
of the
like
time
something
they do.
special.
Yeah. These like period pieces.
I mean, this show is ambitious. I gotta give it to it.
Not exactly the kind of place you find in Oakdale. That is, unless you make a quick
Maybe this is Ohio.
effects department here.
Well, you're welcome.
Karis Palm Turpin.
I mean, the name is insane. Like, what, by the way, what is that name? Is that a name?
That's almost
That's a really bad name.
What is it?
Turpin's a bad last
Karis
name.
Turpin.
Karis Palm Turpin? And that's how I'm ending all of this?
I'm so happy that you picked this out. 'Cause
I did not even notice this.
And I watched this too, but I didn't notice
She's
it.
the visual
at all.
effects supervisor. I just was like, is that real? Like, I've never heard the name Karis. I've never heard the name Palm as a name, and I've never heard the name Turpin as a name. So
I mean,
it was
Karis is interesting. I could see it as like kind of an offshoot of Carrie. And
Karis? No, you can't.
No.
You can't. That's not a thing. Karis is not an offshoot of Carrie.
well, but it's
But it's not. It's never been an offshoot of Carrie.
yeah.
Karis? No, I won't.
And
accept
Turpin, it's okay. Yes, This is a weird fucking name.
Okay, thank you.
Well, what else
Go
has she
ahead.
done? Have
What
you looked
did
it
you
up?
find?
Well, so she's most well known for Wishbone.
Good.
Not just so well known, but she won an Daytime Emmy Award for
Oh,
Wishbone
shoot.
for outstanding graphics and title design.
Girl, what year was that?
1995.
I'm not mad at her. All right, Karis.
go, Karis.
I see you, Karis.
That's pretty good. She came up right away on IMDb. Like she's directed a little bit. She's done a little bit. She directs one of the Wishbone episodes.
Oh.
Okay, guys.
she'll
Obviously,
be back.
like it's the one question I had. I'm leaving you with a great one. I mean, I
That
feel
was-
like
that was awesome.
You've needed to unpack Karis for quite some time right now. She's an Emmy award-winning visual effects
Look at
supervisor
those graphics right there.
and a director of one of the episodes.
She moved on to Barney
Is
after
she
Wishbone.
alive still? Can she
I-
come onto
I
the
hope
show?
so.
There are actually quite a few we've sort of talked about of the actors, especially the child actors that are alive and in town
And not
Right.
and not working in the industry.
Are they working in any industry in town?
I think David works at Cedar
David's the one
Sinai.
I want to get the most.
Yeah.
I really want to get David
Oh
on
yeah,
this show.
that would be a huge score.
Yeah, that would be great.
Like, if I could come back, I would love to just sit.
No,
and hang.
we're gonna get Karis on the show,
Okay,
and then we'll bring you
wanna
back
get
for
Karis
that.
on the show.
I want Karis Palm Turpin.
We'll bring
on
in
the show.
CPT.
We'll make a
CPT.
special 4-person
CPT.
episode. If we can get Karis on the show, we will absolutely have to have you back for
Yeah,
that.
I just want to be like close to her greatness.
What if
you
like
know?
it's like a very religious name, like Palm comes from like like Palm Sunday and like
Ooh.
very that way, and
I
that's
mean,
all I can think
you
about.
can't-
I
she's
still
got-
just don't. I have to agree with D. Karis is not a name.
yeah.
Like
I mean, we can't
It's
just
not.
call it a name. It's not.
It's not. I'm not like arguing that it is a
and
name.
Palm is not a name.
It's not it's a name for an object, but not a person.
Not for a person. It's not a middle name.
no.
And Turpin, like that's the only thing I've never heard it before, but I'm willing to accept.
It makes
that-
me think of turpentine.
Yeah. Everything in there reminds you of something else, but
Yeah.
not names of people.
It's like when you just auto-generate a name on like
Yeah. They like her parents threw letters up and just let them fly
It's
down.
like-
they rolled dice.
It's
Yeah.
like when you open like a fake document and it's all in like
That weird,
it's in, like,
language.
another language.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah, it
like-
kind of actually looks like a jumbled letters that will actually mysteriously spell
right,
something
if
else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that might be a fun thing
It's
for
an
your
anagram.
audience. Figure out what the letters Karis Palm Turpin
Oh
Can
man.
form.
can be formed into.
All right.
That's
Well,
it.
that does it.
Yeah, thank you for
Thank
coming
you.
on. So, where would you like our listeners to find you?
I'm doing a show at the Hudson Theater March 31st at Comedy Central Stage, and it's called Unsend, where we unpack emails that people have sent that have gone horribly awry. And I'm doing it with Matt McConkey. And we're going to have some special guests. Casey Wilson is signed up as of now. We have to get a couple more people, but it should be really fun.
It's awesome. It's a lot of fun. Well, thank you again for showing.
Yeah.
What a
Fun.
pleasure.
It's been amazing. You can find us, at Wishboning on Twitter. Always, we're part of the Zeitgeist, so zeitgeist.com. Go to our website. Christian, anything?
You can find me on Twitter at TweetHumes, but yeah, Zeitgeist, the website, is the best because it has our YouTube channel, our other podcasts. If you want to go directly to Wishboning, it's zeitgeist.com/wishboning or iTunes, obviously.
Yes. It is very elementary. All right, that's going to do it. Thank you. And
Woo-hoo.
have a good night.
Woof woof.